All right, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Kudash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. And I'd also like to say Shalom and salutations to the elect that's out there preaching this word in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Shaquat. I'm one of the brothers from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal. And I'm back once again with another lesson. And this lesson that I'm going to be getting into today is going to be centered around a single precept, and Lord willing, this will be edifying to the elect. All right. So this is the book of Luke, chapter. Let's see where I'm gonna start. Luke 13, and I'm gonna start at verse. Let's start at verse 10. It says, "And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself." Verse 12, "And when Yahushua saw her, he called her to him, and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and glorified Yahweh. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because that Yahushua had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them, therefore, come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day." Right? So this is one of the men that were in the synagogue, right? And he was being technical, right? He was being super technical, because he said that he had a problem with Yahushua healing on the Sabbath day, right? His cases, there are 6 other days that we're allowed to work and do things. You guys should come and be healed on those 6 other days rather than the Sabbath day, right? So that was his cause. That was his thought process, right? Which was not the right thought process, and the reason is because the scriptures speak about doing good on the Sabbath, right? There's nothing wrong with doing good on the Sabbath, right? And that also goes to show you that Yahushua gave us, through Yahushua we have this liberty, to live, right, and not to be bound by the strictness of the laws, right? Because there's nothing wrong with doing good on the Sabbath, as I'm gonna get into. But even now in our current situation, you have cases where some brothers can't take the day off every Sabbath, and the Sabbath changes is based upon the new moon, and it might land on a Monday sundown to Tuesday sundown. It might land on a Friday sundown to Saturday. It changes, but a brother can't always take specific days off based on the every time the Sabbath comes in, because that might jeopardize your job. That might get you in trouble with your job, right? So that's where Yahweh mercy kicks in. That's where grace kicks in. We understand that, okay, I can't really keep taking these days off. My job requires me on this day, on the Sabbath day. I can't take it off, but I'm gonna have mercy. I hope the Lord have mercy on me. Even though I'm working today, right? And the Lord's He understands that situation. But that's what liberty is, man, and that's what grace is. The Lord understands certain situations. And just like here, with this man in the synagogue, right? He's saying you have 6 other days to come and be healed. Come on, those other 6 days. But what if my ailment is an emergency, right? What if I can't wait until the next sundown, right? Or unless I die? What do you want me to do? You want me to just die and give up the spirit, right? So that doesn't make sense. It's okay to do good on the Sabbath, like we're reading here. It's okay to heal on the Sabbath, right? And Yahweh Shai is going to cut them. Matter of fact, let me get a real quick precept. Something just came to mind. Yep. So this is the book of Matthew 12 and verse 5. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start at 1. It says, at that time Yahushua went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath, right? Because you're not even supposed to lift up a hand to do anything, right? That's the strictness of the law, right? Verse 3. But he said unto them, have you not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him, how he entered into the house of the Most High and did eat the shewbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, right? So that shewbread was the priest's bread. Nobody outside the priest could eat that bread. But King David, it was offered to King David, and King David ate it. Why? Because his men were hungry, right? But that wasn't lawful. But given the circumstance and situation of King David, it was okay. It was okay. But but you have to use wisdom, right? You can't purposely, you can't purposely go off, man. That's wicked too. You can't purposely be like, I know the Most High is gonna have mercy on me, so I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna do this anyways because I know He's gonna have mercy on me. So that's a wicked mindset too. That's a wicked mindset too, man. But your mindset should be, that's not the right mindset, man. Right? But there's certain circumstances where it's like, yo, fuck, there's not really much I could do. You feel bad about it, and there's nothing you can really do. For example, like the work example that I brought out, man. You have no choice but to go to work, and you don't feel good about it, but the Lord will have mercy. The Lord understands that situation, and that's the thing. The Lord understands the situation, so you can't finesse your way out of it. You can't, be like, oh, the Lord's gonna have mercy anyway, so I'm gonna have sex on the Sabbath. Like you can avoid that. You know what I mean? There's certain things you can avoid. There's certain things you cannot do. But then there's certain things that it's like, yo, it's tricky, you know? It's hard for you. But the Lord knows and understands all that, right? So it's good to be in the right mindset of, it's good to put things in the right perspective, man, you know? So let me read that again. Matthew 12:4, it says, how he entered into the house of the Most High and did eat the shewbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest. Or have you not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? And how do the priests profane the Sabbath? You know, because they're working on the Sabbath. They're doing the service of the Most High. Right? They're technically working on the Sabbath. And if you want to be technical, the priests shouldn't be, but they're doing the work of the Most High. You know? But they're blameless. Why? Because the Lord understands that they're doing good on the Sabbath. You know? It's okay to do good on the Sabbath. Like you're working, you're doing the work of the Most High. That's why the priests are blameless. Right? Alright, so let's go back to Luke 13. And verse 15, it says, the Lord then answered him and said, thou hypocrite, doeth not each of you on the Sabbath day loose his ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering? So the Lord cut them, right? He cut them. They're saying, oh, yo, you shouldn't be healing people on the Sabbath day. That's going off, right? Oh, you should wait to do that on the 6 other days that are not the Sabbath day. But the Lord said, hold on. Don't each of you on the Sabbath day loose his ox or his ass from the stall to lead him away to watering? And this was something that was accustomed. This was something that was done in ancient Israel, you know, for those that possess cattle and land, right? Which was, you know, which I believe was pretty much almost everyone, right? And I could be corrected if I'm wrong. But if you had a decent amount of money, you would have what? Ox or ass or his ass in a stall, right? And the thing about it is, pretty much, you know, everybody that had that in their house, there was a couple layers, right? So the structure of a house back then, right, was built with about two layers. Matter of fact, let me get it. I got it here in the in ChatGPT, right? It says here, houses were built with a lower animal area, right? Many homes had 2 levels inside, and this is according to the law, right? That's why these skyscrapers, Salaki, I'm excited, but these skyscrapers today, they're going off because a building is not supposed to be a certain height. It's only supposed to be built a certain way. You know, it's supposed to be built a certain height, and not only that, but there has to be something around it to catch anyone that falls. You know, and that's a part of the law, right? But here, and also a part of the structure is that you have a section for your animals in your house, right? And there's a reason for that, because animals are a prized possession. They hold value, right? So you wouldn't leave your animals out at night for anything to happen to them, whether it might be a thief or wild animal or whatever. You would actually bring them into your house to where you had a place, you know, a place for them, a level for them, right? And it was like a stable inside the house, but that's how the house structure was built. And then the next floor will be your living floor, right? So you were pretty much close hand in hand with your animals, right? And that is also a part of the reason why in Isaiah the Lord says, the ox knoweth his the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, because daily you would do the duty of bringing your asses in, you know, and strapping them up and feeding them in the manger, right? Manger. And then also early in the morning you would loose them and take them outside to get their water and so on and so forth, right? But you would do that every day. But that's a duty, that's a job, right? And that's why the Lord here is cussing them out. They're like, yo, and the Lord knew that they did it that morning or that day before the day begun on the Sabbath day. You know, the Lord knew that they did that. They loosed their ox and his ass from the stall to lead him away to watering, right? So they couldn't say anything because the Lord knew that they did that because that was a common thing, right? So that's why he used that to cut them. He said, hold on, you're telling me I can't heal on the Sabbath, but you did work on the Sabbath too, and that was loose. Oh, you know, that was loose. You loose your ox and your ass from the stall to lead them to watering. That's a job right there. That's working right there. So how you know how you cussing me out when you, yo, hey. So I'm gonna read that again. Luke 13:15. The Lord then answered him and said, "Thou hypocrite, doeth not each of you on the Sabbath day loose his ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan had bound, lo, these 18 years, be loose from this bond on the Sabbath day?" Right, so I can't help this woman out on the Sabbath day. I can't do good to somebody that Satan has bound. I can't loose her from this infirmity that she's been dealing with for 18 years. But it's okay for you to loose your donkey and take him to water in the morning. And you know, verse 17, and when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed. Why? Because they knew that the Lord was on point. The Lord cut them. Because the Lord knew that they did work on the Sabbath day, but they're calling him out for doing work on the Sabbath, for doing something good on the Sabbath day, man. Right? It says, and when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Right? You know? Amen. So, I'm going to end it off there. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I'd like to give double honors to my teachers, once again, the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. And as always, I'd like to say shalom and salutations to the elect. Until next time, shalom.